All right, let's talk about filing. So we're going to start with this circle, and we're going to be using the half round file. You're going to almost always use the half round file for most circles, the rounded part of the half round file. And I'm always going to brace my work. You always want to brace your work against your bench pin. There is no such thing as air filing. You're not to hold it in the air, you're not to hold it against your knee, you're to hold it against the bench pin. When I file, I overlap my strokes, and I'm always kind of lifting up at the end. Okay, so when I'm pushing, I'm overlapping, and I'm twisting the file just a little bit. And I'm also using the light reflection to make sure that there's no deep or dark parts. Dark parts mean low parts, and you're not filing away the nicks and the dark parts. You're filing everything down to the lowest part. Let's move on to the star. Sharp corners, wide angles. I'm going to be using the square and the triangle file. And I'm going to be using them in slightly different ways for the inside structure of the star and the outside structure. So I'm going to be using the triangle. Let's see how we can use it. And then I'm also going to be using the square, probably on the diamond. That means you turn it so it looks like a diamond. Okay, so here is the triangle file. The triangle file is going to be used for the very sharp parts, and here's the square. And the square is going to be used for the longer parts. So I'm going to line it all up so I can use it easily. I'm going to brace my work against the bench pin. I'm holding it a little bit high above the bench pin so you can see it easily. And I'm bracing that work, and I'm using the triangle file, and not the whole length of it, not the whole length of it, just part of it. Whatever part fits. You don't want to push it so too big of a part. You don't want to widen the tip. You just want to sharpen the tips. And I'm going to be working from the front and from the back and constantly visually inspecting. For these longer parts, you can use the triangle on the flat. You can use the square on the flat. You can use the flat part of a half round. The best file to use for this area is the barrette file, the file with no teeth on the tops. That way you're not accidentally bumping the tips you just filed. And I usually like to start with smaller to bigger. So this is the small part of that bottom part, and this is the square on the diamond. You can use the square on the diamond, and then I would use the barrette file for those longer areas. Okay, the square on the diamond, it means it's turned. So one of the edges should be facing up towards you. And the bottom part is the perfect size for wider or obtuse angles and corners. So I'm just going to go through and sharpen all of the tips first, and then I'll use the flat part or the barrette file. You can also file this way. You still have to push down. File only works in one direction, forward. So there will be no rubbing ever of files. It's just a push, a push, a push. It only cuts on the push, no matter how you hold it. Okay, now let's talk about the actual star shape. It's so tiny, it's really hard to hold and file at the same time, so you're going to use your tool called the ring clamp. It's a two-piece wooden thing, and it's called a ring clamp because that big ring in the middle. And there's two sides. You're going to use this rounded side, and you're going to clamp it. You're going to have to futz with this a little bit to see what is too tall and what is too deep in the ring clamp. You want enough material sticking out so you could easily get to it. Okay, but you don't want it so deep in there that you're like messing up your filing. Either way, you're going to be using the crotch of the bench pin to hold the ring clamp. You're going to stick it right in that V, and you're still going to support your work in the ring clamp with the bench pin. So you can see I'm utilizing the ring clamp and the bench pin to really support my work. I'm using the square on the diamond to get those inner corners of the star, and then I'm using the flat part on the flat parts. And you can see as I strike, with every stroke, I'm kind of pulling up like a magic wand. Bing! Okay, I always want to be pulling up when I'm filing. I don't want to curve it down. I want to go up, 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 just like this. If I don't, and I start kind of curving it like this is my human inclination because I'm round, I want to make everything round. So I really need to make an effort to lift my hand up at the end of my filing stroke and not curve it down so I don't accidentally curve if I want to have something straight. And then I'm just going to keep in that overlap tradition, and I'm going to keep turning the star and addressing the planes of the star as I go around using the ring clamp. There's no need to try to hold it with your fingers. You won't hold it sturdily, and you won't get a good angle to file. This way, you can use both hands, and you have an extra tool to help you along. Again, using the reflection of the light to check my surfaces. If I see any dark marks, that usually means that there's low points, and I want to get rid of all those types of areas. But you can see I'm pulling my hand up, I'm not turning it down as I file. You can almost see this little dark spot right here. It's just slight, but it's there, and I'm using just the reflection of the light to check it. And now you can see it's completely shiny. There's no break in the line of reflection, and that tells me, plus touching it with my hands, that it's done. I use my fingers a lot to touch the surfaces to make sure that it's smooth, to make sure that it's straight, to make sure that there's no burrs. And you will have a burr on the back, ouch, like this. It'll feel like a little flange of metal. And you're just going to lightly file that off. You're going to very lightly, I don't know if you can see it here, I'm going to very lightly just kind of scratch it off. Can you see the reflection? Watch one more time. After I file it, just slightly, you can see that light. I filed the burr off. Now it's nice and smooth. I'm not like getting aggressive trying to remove metal. I'm just trying to remove that burr.